I pretended to lose my $5,000 billion fortune. My whole family betrayed me, but my son didn't. I had $5,000 billion, and I thought I had a loving family. So I did something insane. I pretended I lost everything. Overnight, I told them the businesses were gone. The accounts were frozen. The mansion? At risk of being sold. That's when I found out who actually loved me, and who only loved my money. My wife packed her bags in less than 48 hours. My daughters asked for their inheritance now, before I dragged them down with me. They called me a failure. Useless. Stay till the end to see what unfolded. Subscribe this channel and tell us where you are watching from. I gave my family a life most people only dream of, a world gilded in excess. Private jets waiting on the tarmac, sprawling mansions that echoed with emptiness, and personal chefs who knew their dietary restrictions but not their hearts. Whatever they wanted, they got. From the outside, we looked like the picture of success, a dynasty carved from the bedrock of modern technology. I'd built a $5 billion tech empire from the ground up, starting with nothing but a garage and an idea, and I shared every single piece of it with them. But the more I gave, the more I felt my own identity eroding. I wasn't a person anymore. I was a provider, a walking ATM with a familiar face. I was a concept, not a father or a husband. The smiles I received felt rehearsed, and every touch of affection felt like a transaction, a down payment for the next luxury item. I'd sit at the head of a massive polished dining table, surrounded by my family, and feel utterly, crushingly alone. Was any of it real? Did they love me? Arthur Sterling, the man who read history books and loved sailing? Or did they just love the lifestyle my name afforded them? The question began to haunt me, keeping me awake in the dead of night. There was only one way to find out, one way to strip away the varnish and see the true grain of their character. I had to lose everything, or at least pretend to. It was a crazy, audacious plan, faking my own catastrophic bankruptcy to see who would stick by me when the chips were truly down. It was extreme, a scorched earth solution, but it felt like my only option to answer the question that was hollowing me out from the inside. My life wasn't just luxurious. It was a theater of the absurd. We had a mansion in Bel Air so large that we communicated via an intercom system. A penthouse in Manhattan with views that could make a god feel humble. And a summer home in the south of France that we visited maybe twice a year. My wife, Clarice, wasn't so much a partner as she was a curator of our public image for society magazines. Her days were a whirlwind of planning, pruning, and perfecting. Her biggest worry wasn't our marriage, but which charity gala to attend and more importantly what to wear to it. She adored being Mrs. Sterling, the elegant wife of a billionaire titan. But I wasn't sure if she still loved me, the man who had once made her laugh with stupid jokes in our tiny first apartment. My oldest son, Marcus, was supposed to be my heir. At least that's what he and everyone else thought. I gave him a corner office at Sterling Corp, a title and a generous salary, but he treated it like his personal clubhouse. At 28, he'd never worked a real day in his life. He'd show up at noon, take a 2-hour lunch and spend his afternoons on the phone with brokers, not for the company but for his own portfolio of racehorses. His only real interests were fast cars and even faster women, all financed by the Sterling name. He didn't see the company as a legacy to be nurtured. He saw it as an infinite bank vault he could raid at will. Then there was my daughter, Isabella. Her entire universe was confined to the 6-inch screen of her phone. She was an influencer, a term that still felt foreign and bizarre to me. Her life was one long, meticulously staged photo shoot. She would spend hours, sometimes entire days, orchestrating the perfect shot, with a new handbag or a sponsored detox tea, but she couldn't give me 5 minutes of genuine, unfiltered conversation. I once tried to talk to her about a book I was reading, and she responded by asking if the cover was aesthetic enough for her to post. And then there was Leo. My youngest. The quiet one. He was the family's gentle shadow, always watching, always listening, perpetually overshadowed by his louder, more demanding siblings. Leo didn't care about the company or the fame that came with our name. He'd rather be in the library than at a party, losing himself in the worlds of history and philosophy. I'd find him reading about the rise and fall of Rome, or the ethical dilemmas of the great philosophers. In a family that was a chorus of "I want," he never asked for a single thing. His silence wasn't empty, it was full of thought. This of course made him a total outcast. I loved all my kids, but I worried that the world I'd built for them, a world without struggle or want, had hollowed them out, leaving nothing but a ravenous appetite. Except maybe for Leo. He was the one variable I couldn't predict, the one spark of hope in my grand, terrible experiment that I decided to blow up my life on a Tuesday evening. It felt fittingly mundane for such a cataclysmic event. I called a family meeting in the library, a room filled with thousands of leather-bound books that, other than by Leo and myself, had never been touched. It was a monument to knowledge they had no interest in acquiring. Clarice, Marcus, and Isabella strolled in about 15 minutes late, their faces etched with the clear annoyance of having their precious evening schedules interrupted. Leo was already there, of course, sitting in a worn armchair, a book resting in his lap. He looked up when I entered, a flicker of concern already in his eyes, as if he could sense the shift in the atmosphere. I stood in front of the grand marble fireplace, my hands shaking just a little, a tremor I tried to conceal by clasping them behind my back. "I've called you all here," I started, my voice intentionally heavy, "because I have some awful, truly awful news." Clarice let out an exasperated sigh, barely looking up from her phone. "Arthur, if this is about the caterer for the polo match on Saturday, I've already handled it. The man was an amateur." "No, Clarice, it's not that." I took a deep breath, the air feeling thick and heavy in my lungs. "There's no easy way to say this. The company, it's gone. A series of high-risk investments, gambles I thought would pay off, went south. The market turned on us with a vengeance. The banks called in our loans. Everything, every single asset, every stock, every account, is gone. We're bankrupt." The silence that followed was so thick and absolute you could feel its weight pressing down. It was a silence filled not with shock for my sake, but with the screeching halt of their own selfish worlds. Isabella gasped, a theatrical, horrified sound. "What do you mean, bankrupt? My brand trip to Dubai is next week. The tickets are non-refundable. My followers are expecting a whole series of posts." Marcus shot out of his chair as if he'd been electrocuted. "Bankrupt? How could you let this happen?" he roared, his face turning a blotchy red. "Are you senile? My entire trust fund is tied to company stock. Are you telling me it's all gone? How could you be so monumentally stupid?" Clarice just stared at me. It was the most remarkable and horrifying transformation I had ever witnessed. All the warmth she ever faked, all the practiced smiles and gentle touches, just vanished. Her face went cold, hard, and calculating. It was like watching a mask melt away to reveal the stone underneath. You could almost see the abacus clicking behind her eyes as she calculated her losses, watching her life's work of marrying a rich man go up in literal smoke. In all the chaos, the accusations, and the raw, unfiltered panic, only Leo was still. He didn't say a word. He just looked at me, and his eyes weren't filled with the anger and entitlement that radiated from his siblings. They were filled with worry. For me, the fallout was as fast as it was ugly. The gilded house of cards I'd so carefully constructed came tumbling down in a spectacular, albeit staged, fashion. We had to downsize, which was a polite term for being evicted from our own lives. Moving from our 30,000 square foot mansion to a normal 4-bedroom suburban house I'd rented in secret felt like an interdimensional journey. The actors I had hired to play bankruptcy agents were masters of their craft, their faces grim and their paperwork extensive. They were very, very convincing. Clarice didn't even last a week in our new humble reality. For her, losing her social status was a fate worse than death. It was a public execution of the identity she had so carefully cultivated. "Do you have any idea how utterly humiliating this is?" she screamed at me one afternoon, surrounded by cardboard moving boxes she refused to touch. "I married a titan of industry, a king. Not some broke, pathetic old man." A few days later, her lawyer called. A crisp, impersonal voice informing me that she was filing for divorce, seeking to sever all ties before my debts could taint her. She never once asked if I was okay. Not a single word of concern for the man she'd spent decades with. She just wanted out. Marcus, stripped of his power and privilege, turned into a cornered, vicious animal. He blamed me entirely for ruining what he considered his birthright. One afternoon I overheard him on the phone, his voice a low, conspiratorial hiss. He was trying to arrange the private sale of a Monet from our collection before the creditors could seize it. He wasn't trying to salvage something to help the family. He was trying to fund his own escape. When I confronted him, he didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "I'm taking what's mine," he spat, his eyes cold and defiant. "You destroyed my future. You owe me that much." Isabella's reaction was somehow the most soul-crushing. She didn't get angry, she got opportunistic. She immediately tried to turn our family's collapse into a new brand of social media content. She posted a teary black and white video from her new comically small bedroom. "My life is falling apart," she sobbed to her millions of followers, a single perfect tear rolling down her cheek. "But I'm staying strong and I want to be vulnerable with you all." The video was, of course, sponsored by a luxury tissue company. When the sponsorship cash and the wave of online sympathy ran out a week later, so did she. I got a curt text saying she was staying with a friend in Monaco. Then she blocked my number. And through all of this emotional carnage there was Leo. He was the only one who helped pack the boxes on moving day, carefully wrapping the few sentimental items that mattered. His first question after I'd made the announcement wasn't about his trust fund or his inheritance. It was, "Are you okay, Dad?" He saw the agony I was pretending to feel and met it with real, tangible compassion. While his siblings were cursing my name and plotting their escapes, Leo was online looking for cheap apartments and local job listings. The next week he got a job bussing tables at a local diner. He'd come home late at night, exhausted, smelling of grease and coffee, and hand me a few crumpled dollar bills from his tips. "It's not much," he'd say, his face tired but his eyes determined, "but it's a start." He was trying to hold us together. He was the only one who understood that family was supposed to be about support, not spending. A month went by. It was without a doubt the most painful yet most clarifying month of my entire life. I'd never been poorer in circumstance, but I was beginning to understand what real wealth looked like. It wasn't in a stock portfolio, it was in a character. I decided it was time. The experiment had run its course and the results were in. I called one last family meeting. I sent a simple, untraceable text from a burner phone. "I need to see you. Our old house. Tomorrow at noon. It's important." Their greed and curiosity were bait enough. Clarice showed up first, her lawyer flanking her like a bodyguard. Marcus pulled up in a flashy new sports car he'd obviously hidden from the creditors, a car I now knew he'd bought with the secret sale of the Monet. Isabella flew back from Monaco looking tanned, bored, and deeply inconvenienced, as if this was a tragic interruption to her life of leisure. They walked into the now empty, dusty mansion, their faces dripping with a mixture of contempt and suspicion. Leo was the last to arrive. He came straight from his shift at the diner, still in his slightly stained uniform, looking tired but resolute. He didn't hesitate. He walked right over and stood next to me, a silent, unwavering show of support. He thought I was about to beg for help and he was there to stand with me. They all stared, probably expecting me to ask for a handout, to plead for a scrap from the tables they had managed to salvage. "Thank you for coming," I said, my voice echoing unervingly in the giant empty entrance hall. "A month ago I told you I lost everything. And in a way I did. I lost the suffocating illusion I was living in." I pointed a steady finger at Clarice. "You served me divorce papers before the dust even settled, your only concern protecting your assets from my failure." I turned to Marcus. "You stole from your own family, selling a priceless heirloom to fund your getaway while I was learning how to use a microwave." My gaze landed on Isabella, who shrank back slightly. "And you sold our family's pain for online clicks and a sponsorship deal before you ghosted your own father completely." Their confusion was rapidly curdling into anger. "What's your point, Arthur?" Clarice snapped, her voice sharp. "That we didn't want to be poor? Big surprise. Get on with it." "My point," I said, my voice dropping as the main gate buzzed loudly, "is that it was all a test." Right on cue, as if from a movie, my CFO David and my lead attorney Maria walked in. They were dressed in immaculate suits, holding thick leather-bound binders. They didn't look like they worked for a bankrupt company. They looked exactly like what they were: the senior leadership of a thriving multi-billion-dollar global empire. The color drained from Clarice's face. Marcus literally stumbled backward, his mouth hanging open. Isabella's jaw dropped, her ever-present phone falling from her hand and clattering onto the marble floor. "I didn't lose my money," I said, my voice as cold and hard as the floor beneath them. "I just needed to lose my attachments to it. I had to know who truly had my back. I had to know who loved me and who just loved my money." I looked at the three of them, my family in name only. "You all gave me the answer. Loud and clear. You failed. Before I tell you exactly what happened next, the consequences of their choices, do me a favor. If you're hooked by this story of family, wealth, and betrayal, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We explore what true wealth and loyalty really mean in this world, and you won't want to miss what's coming." The consequences were as immediate as they were absolute. The atmosphere in the hall was thick with shock and dawning horror. I turned to Clarice's lawyer, who looked pale and shaken. "The divorce is happening," I said calmly. "But our prenup, the one you both dismissed as a mere formality years ago, is ironclad. She will leave this marriage with what she brought into it, her personal effects, and absolutely nothing more." To Marcus and Isabella, I was just as blunt, my voice devoid of any fatherly warmth. "You're cut off. Effective immediately. The trust funds I established for you have been dissolved. The credit cards are cancelled. The cars, the apartments, the entire infrastructure of your lives that you took for granted. It's all over. You wanted to know what it's like to have nothing? You're about to find out. Welcome to the real world. I suggest you get a job." Then I turned to the only person who had proven himself to be family. Leo. For the first time, my voice broke with genuine emotion. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with confusion and shock. I placed my hands firmly on his shoulders. When you thought I was homeless, you offered me a place to sleep on your couch. You gave me your tips, money you earned through hard, honest work from a job you didn't have to take. You didn't see a failed businessman. You saw your father. You showed me what the word son really means. I took a heavy document from my lawyer, Maria. I'm stepping down as CEO of Sterling Corp effective today. The board has already held an emergency vote and unanimously approved my successor. I handed the paper to Leo. His eyes scanned the first line and he froze. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman. It's all yours. I lost a wife and 2 children that day, but in the wreckage I found my son. I finally learned the truth of an old axiom. You can be in a mansion full of people and feel completely, utterly alone, or you can be in a tiny apartment with one person who has your back and feel like the richest man on the face of the earth. My real net worth was never about the numbers in a bank account. It was about the loyalty that was left when it looked like the money was all gone. My life is quieter now, but infinitely more valuable. I work with Leo, advising him, watching with pride as he leads the company with an integrity I thought I had failed to instill. I found my wealth, and it has nothing to do with billions. What would you have done if you were in my family? And what do you think is the true measure of a person's wealth? I'm genuinely curious. Let me know what you think in the comments below.